This audio presentation is a microbial source tracking for monitoring pest bird contamination in BC dairy farm setting. This is Jam He. He's a student from Bachelor of Science at Trinity Western University. So we're just begin to start.
All right. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. My name is Jack, as I mentioned. And today I'm here to tell you a little bit about microbial source tracking of pest bird food contamination within dairy farm settings here in BC, alongside my supervisor, Dr. Onyango. And with that, so before we dive in today, I will give you a brief overview of the contents of my presentation. We'll start off with a quick introduction to the backgrounds of what pest birds are and their impacts on dairy farms, followed by the objectives of my study and the methodologies employed, alongside with my current results and discussions. Although this is an ongoing project, I think it is important for us to discuss some of our current findings. Before we begin, what are pest birds? Well, by definition, pest birds are birds that are found within human habitats that have a negative impact on both people and the environment. Within recent decades, unsustainable agriculture practices alongside ecosystem destruction have led to an increasing infestation of pest birds within our habitats. Within dairy farms specifically, open feed storage, large industrialized barns, and conversion of natural habitats to agricultural lands have all contributed to this issue of pest bird contamination, leading to numerous infestations from various native species, alongside invasive species such as the English house sparrow and the European starling. But why is this important? Well, economically, it's been found through a 2019 estimate that pest bird infestation of dairy farms have led to feed loss costing up to $6.7 billion in growth domestic products within the state of Washington alone. But beyond just economic impacts, pest bird infestations have also a variety of health implications. As they're known to be reservoirs of dangerous pathogens, fecal contamination from pest birds could have a variety of zoonosis, which is defined as the transmission of pathogens from vertebrate animals to humans or vice versa, as well as livestock contamination, which is the same transmission but to other animals, as well as the subsequent decrease in agricultural production. So within this table here, I listed a couple of examples of bacterial pathogens that are found in pest birds and their relative disease implications. So, how does this conversation about pest birds actually fit with our topic today here about planetary health? Well, pest birds and planetary health are ultimately interconnected through microbial contamination. So what does this mean? Well, when pest birds infest dairy farm settings, they come into close proximity and interactions with both humans and animals. And now the transmission of microbes of both of them could have detrimental health effects on both and causes the destruction of the ecosystem. Furthermore, as I mentioned, our unsustainable practices lead to a destruction of habitats as well as a disruption within the natural ecosystem, which then further contributes to the issue of pest bird infestation. Overall, because of the multifaceted impacts, as well as the stakeholders involved in this conversation, a OneHealth approach is therefore vital for us to address this issue in the future. But now let's reduce the scope once more into my current study. So what are the actual objectives of my study? To begin with, as we've discussed, pest bird contamination is detrimental to the operations of dairy farms. However, we must acknowledge that microbial contamination within settings can originate from multiple sources beyond just that of pest birds. As such, accurate assessment of the pest bird contribution to the issue is vital in developing a proper mitigation strategy that will help control microbial contamination, leading to the objective of my study, which is the assessment of avian microbial contamination within dairy farm settings through an in silico genetic approach of microbial identification and source tracking. And microbial source tracking essentially is just a genetic approach of determining the sources of microbial contaminants. So let us take a look at the methodologies we employed in our study. Beginning with sampling. All the environmental samples collected within our study are collected at the Affiliation dairy farm here in Affiliation, BC, as you can see on the right. And from the farm, there's two different sample types that we're collecting. One is the water samples collected from cattle troughs, alongside solid samples such as the feed sample we collected here. And these samples are collected under sterile practices using sterile containers. In total, 5 different samples were collected from the dairy farm in triplicates, ranging from a positive control of two species, as well as the negative control of a clean, active cow trough, alongside a couple of experimental samples, including 2 cow troughs with or without lid, without any livestock usage, alongside solid samples such as the cow feed. So what are the actual methodologies of our investigation? Well, after the collection of our environmental samples, genomic DNA is extracted using a hydrogen-powered fecal DNA extraction kit. The obtained high-purity DNA was then sequenced using Oxford nanopores in an ion sequencing platform to obtain whole genome reads. These obtained sequences were then analyzed through a variety of metagenomic analysis using programs such as the Epitome analysis program from Oxford nanopore, as well as further detailed sequence analysis using Genius Prime to accomplish our goal of source tracking. So what does our results look like? To begin with, our sequencing output from our Oxford nanopore sequencing experiment have led to the yielding of high quantities of accurate reads. And these reads are found within all of our samples, including a control sample utilizing laboratory strains of Staphylococcus aureus and Escherichia coli. So what does reads mean in this context? Well, reads are essentially just high-quality base called DNA sequences obtained from our environmental samples. And as you can see, the majority of those reads are able to be classified. And what that means is that they're able to be identified within this particular taxonomic identity. So through those identifications, we're able to identify a variety of dangerous pathogens that exist throughout all of our environmental samples, including some of the aforementioned Escherichia species, Staphylococcus species, Pseudomonas species, Microbial species, as well as Salmonella species, and much more. Upon closer inspection to some of those microbial contents, we discovered a high degree of similarity between microbial content of the goose fecal sample as well as the cow feed sample with almost identical microbial makeups. Although, as you might notice, some of the microbial distribution between the two are slightly different. However, those differences could be easily explained by the difference in the microenvironment for which these microbes were founded. Furthermore, specific DNA analysis found positive alignment hits using avian-specific genetic marker, the GFD marker, within both these samples. But what does this actually mean? Well, the observed similarity between the microbial profile of the goose feces DNA as well as the cow feed DNA suggests the possibility of avian contamination. Furthermore, the successful alignment of the GFD avian-specific genetic marker within the goose fecal sample confirms the validity of the genetic marker. The GFD marker is a specific genetic marker used to selectively bind to avian fecal DNA within environmental samples. As such, the subsequent successful alignment of the GFD genetic marker within the cow feed sample provides indicative evidence of avian contamination within the dairy farm setting. And this finding corroborates previous findings, which found that pest contamination of cattle feed is prevalent throughout dairy farms, which is highly problematic as it can lead to the transmission of dangerous livestock diseases such as Jones disease and salmonellosis, alongside microbial infections within humans and feed spoilage leading to economic loss. But what does this actually look like in terms of a OneHealth perspective? As we've discussed, in terms of resolving this issue in the future, policy changes are necessary in order to ensure a sustainable farming and environmental practices, therefore to contain and limit future pest infestations. While proactive healthcare monitoring of potential microbial contamination could help us to have timely and accurate treatments in case of those contaminations, while the successful mitigation of pest infestation could have a positive economic impact on the dairy farm industry. And lastly, our environmental efforts to address and restore those natural habitats that we have destroyed could help with encouraging pest relocation and help resolving this issue from its roots. Lastly, I want to finish off with a biblical perspective. As Christians, we're called to be stewards of God's creation. Now, in the process of mitigating pest infestation within dairy farms, it will call upon us to practice these principles through environmental stewardship, invasive species stewardship, as well as microbial stewardship. So I want to finish off with this verse from Genesis 1:28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on earth. So as Christians, let us pick up this mantle of stewardship over God's beautiful creation, and take care of not only those livestock within our barns, but as well as the birds within the heavens, and down to every small living thing, including those microbes around us. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Jack. Wonderful presentation. So I will put the floor now to the question and answer. Yes, let's get
One question I had, you had on one of the slides, it said removal of birds negatively affects the ecosystem.
Yes.
And so as you're dealing with these what we as human beings then label as invasive species, like why, if then removing the birds, if that affects the ecosystem, then why would you consider that? Because in the end you talk about relocation of birds.
Yes. So this point of removing the birds might be impacting the ecosystem is kind of a broader statement, but if you narrow it down to its actual application with our settings, is that most of the current pest control methods employed within dairy farms are not selected towards invasive species. They just overall are hostile, or usually hostile methods which eliminate or attempts to eliminate all bird species within the environment, such as application of hypersonic applications where they play this frequency over speaker that discourages bird, habitation, but as well as practices such as putting barbed wires over barns and all the beams, just overall negatively impacts the birds, populations, right? And the implication of those is that a decrease in the overall bird within the environment, bird population within the environment can lead to a loss of important ecological functions such as seed dispersion,
yes.
As well as pollination, and just an overall moving of nutrients, such as the role that the bald eagle play within the local BC area, where they carry nutrients from the coast up into the further inland due to their migration. Yes.
Just wanted to know, could you elaborate a bit on what you specifically think about microbial stewardship, the one that was on the last slide?
Sorry.
On the last slide,
Yeah.
where you mentioned about different roles from Christian faith perspective.
Yes.
Could you elaborate more on what is microbial stewardship?
Yeah. So microbial stewardship takes a couple different forms, right? Within the popular media and our popular conversations in the scientific community, we often talk about microbial stewardship in terms of antimicrobial, control. Right? So as we know in that conversation, that antibiotics is one of the miracles of modern medicine, right? But as a result of our, misusage of antibiotics, have led to the development of a multitude of antimicrobial, resistance to those antibiotics, right? So part of our role within this conversation is to figure out how to properly assess, microbial contamination within these different environments to relate to how it impacts our day-to-day health, right? So that way it can lead to more accurate, usage of those antibiotics, right? So we're not using these wide array of, wide spectrum antibiotics that will in turn facilitate antimicrobial resistance, but help us focus on using very targeted applications of those antibiotics, right? And furthermore, as we know, microbes are very important to our day-to-day lives, right? We have a lot of products that we consume every day, like yogurts, that rely on microbes, but as well as our gut health, and a lot of microbiomes that are found within our skin, our day-to-day life that are essential to our health. So our goal is not to eliminate them, but to accurately help steward them to create a balance between the ecosystem and our health.
Yes.
On that note, are there any bacteria that you think may be positive coming from the birds through? You can see that there's an overlap in the contamination, but...
Yeah, so In terms of the positives, well, like bacteria can help. So part of the birds, I guess, their role within the ecosystem is that one of the things they do is help with degradation of environmental waste, right? So it would help with that recycling process or like nutrients, right? And part of that involves their feces, right? So the microbial in their feces help break down all these, I guess, natural nutrients and help feed back into the ecosystem. So that's some of the, I guess, positives from that. However, like within our context, the contamination of those microbes within areas where they're not supposed to, right? Such as onto our livestock farms, right? Either it's poultry or it's agriculture settings, such as like our vegetable farms, right? As well as like into our day-to-day lives, it could have very detrimental effects because you're going where you're not supposed to. That answers the question.
Yeah, just take one more question.
It's over time.
Yeah, actually, yeah. We have a bit of race. Yeah, I'm keeping track. Okay, thank you, Jack, very much.